This podcast will fail. And that's probably okay, but I could just as easily be wrong, so who really knows? All right, so this is going to be episode 63. Yeah, episode 63 of This Podcast Will Fail. I am just some guy. Who I am is completely irrelevant to the conversations that I come here to have with you, with myself, and today with an old friend. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to my guy, Marc. Hi, Marc.
Hello there, everybody. How's it going? I was almost expecting like some fake hand clapping in there, but you know what? Sometimes you just got to enter the stage and let the talking do the rest, I suppose.
I mean, that would be like a total old school throwback to what you and I used to do, like the whole stupid soundboard with sound effects and every other dumb, cheap little trick that we did. And so, and just before we jumped on, you actually said that, like, we're sitting there fussing with headphones and sound, and then you're like, this is like the old days. I mean, yeah, you know what? Nothing ever worked.
Trial by error, and I mean, back in those days, I mean, I don't even know if the term podcast had even really started yet. You know,
I don't think so.
So it was, and it wasn't just us. I mean, there was a lot of people trying to figure this whole field out. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talked about it quite a bit in the first season of this podcast of you know, the genesis of internet radio. Like nowadays, everybody's got Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams and whatever other. It's all simple click and no work. And no, screw that. We had to do so much work.
Yeah.
Just to cobble together a live radio show and have people on webcam and have chat rooms. And now all of it's just like plug and play. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, it would be, you know, once a week, and I mean, we were planning every day. I mean, we would do like 2 meetups during the week just to make sure that the Saturday show was good, or at least ready to go. And even then, you know, the Saturday show sometimes would just completely drop out on us. So yeah, it was a lot of work. And then that's why I know that there's other people out there who are doing stuff every single day, and it seems a little overwhelming to me, but then again, I'm not doing it, so I can't really speak to that point, you know?
Well, right. And, you know, neither am I. And actually, so I'll take a second and just kind of lay it out a little more detail for anybody that has not listened, to any of the older stuff that I made on this podcast. So in 2005, I launched an internet radio show very loosely based on the idea of Howard Stern. I was like a little Howard Stern wannabe. And very quickly, this dude that you're hearing on the other side of this podcast popped up. And within 2 episodes, you were like, dude, let me be a co-host. And I'm like, yeah, come on, be a co-host.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I think there was like 2 or 3 people. He had posted this thing in this internet movie forum that I was a part of. We were all geeks, and I was like, oh, cool. He's going to talk about entertainment and pop culture stuff. I want to go give it a listen. And that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I knew you as the Gentleman Death.
Yes.
In those early days. Yeah. I mean, it was all like, I mean, it was fun. It was just, it was just flat out fun. And it was a lot of work, and I put a lot of work on you and yeah. And, you know, actually, I don't know if you realize this, but, a side note, there's really only one man left standing out of those days and those years. And that's Kenny C. And I don't know if you remember chilling with Jeff and Kenny C.
I do, actually. He's still on my Facebook. I still see.
Is he really?
I still see him post stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he's still running strong. That bastard's running 2 shows a week, doing his entertainment show, doing a wrestling show, and it's 12 something years. I mean, he outlasted everybody.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, big props to Kenny C if you're out there. But, so, you know, you and I have talked, I think, probably twice before this most recent time that we've kind of connected here in the last week or so. I think over the course of these 10 something 12 years, we've just kind of hovered across. You seem to remember my birthday for some reason every year and pop up and throw me a happy birthday, which is cool as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could take credit, but I'm gonna have to let Facebook take credit where it's due. So, plus it would
It's
just feel
okay.
kind of weird. I see it and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna say happy birthday. Go
You're a
from
good
there.
guy. You're good. Good
And
guy like
you and
that. I
Andrea
appreciate
have the
you.
same birthday, so I'm like, bam, two birds, one stone, right there.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But so here's the deal, right? And there's a specific set of reasons why I really, really wanted to have an opportunity to kind of just get you and I back on a microphone again, and just sort of look at that period in our lives, and it ended kind of rough, and that's kind of what I set up this season of this podcast, um and called it Coming to Terms. And as much as I spent the first season of this podcast working through all of the different failures that I've had as a content creator, I wanted to just kind of work through issues in life, right? Family stuff and personal stuff and work stuff, and I've never really felt like I had a real chance to kind of come back to you and have that opportunity for us to kind of look back at the good times, but also take a closer look at quite honestly what went wrong, right? Because it was a very short period of time for me when it all just kind of did like a slow death. It all
Yeah.
sort of fell apart. um and so I know it was a total of 4 years that I did the show, and I did like 200 episodes. And I think that, right, it was like what, in the second year, and we brought Andrea on board, I think, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Um, Something like, and she'd been another one. She was one of my wife's friends that happened to be showing up to the show every single week and getting really involved and calling in a lot. And next thing I know, we brought her in, and she's a third co-host. Now we've got like a morning zoo program. Um, and it really just, I felt like it kind of took a life of its own, and it took off. And we were, like you said, we were having production meetings twice a week, which is kind of silly. Um, amateur hour production meetings over Skype or something.
Yeah, that's what we were doing. I think we started with emails, and then Skype was really blowing up around that time. And then, I mean, this was back when I still had a landline at my apartment, and we would call, and then we would do the three-way calling on the phone, and do that and take notes. And then, yeah, bringing Andrea in, that was nice because she kind of gave different points of view and opinion, obviously, but yeah, I kind of felt like that's when we completed this trio, and I believe we started off as an hour, and then we did 3 hours, and then I think we finally settled on 2 hours.
Right,
It
right.
was something like that, yeah.
I think like there reached a point where my ambition got so far ahead of real life, right? And I had this ridiculous notion that this thing was going to take off, right? And that I was going to somehow launch it into a real, like, okay, step back, Opie and Anthony, look out, Howard Stern, here I come, and I just I don't know. I pushed you guys so hard to do more and do more and do more, and we need segments, and what's the segments, and I've got interview guests, and I we did a lot of cool stuff. We did a lot of funny ass bits. We did a lot of, I think that the comedy was always just spot on. I mean, when I think back, all I can really remember is just laughing
Yeah.
constantly. The three of us cracking each other up. Um,
Yeah, no, I think I noticed that obviously I feel natural was always the best way to go, and I don't know if we necessarily ever came up with like a skit, like an SNL thing, but it was more or less like an idea, and once we got comfortable with each other, the naturality of that came out, and I think that's what people gravitated towards because you would listen to a lot of the other shows at the time, and either it was just no structure, pointless talking, drunken round table. Or, you could tell that people were reading from something, and I felt like we found that good, happy balance of the two. And yeah, we would have notes like, hey, this is coming up next, or hey, get ready, we're going to do an interview. But most of the time it was just kind of a free flow, and that's what I remember about it. The creativeness of it is what I remember of it.
You know what I see nowadays, the prevalence of these kind of chain letter things on Facebook, right? Someone will post hey, fill out these 10 things and tell me your, whatever's, or these stupid little like pass it along games. And I look at a lot of those and I go, Christ, we were doing that. We were sitting there doing what is the world's greatest and world's worst, right? Those were always my favorite. What is, we would do competitions and
Yeah.
brackets and just ridiculous game shows. Having webcams was an amazing thing when that really started taking off, because then we were doing things like pulling internet memes and having captioned this, and having the audience. I think for me, the interplay between the three of us was always just lit. It was always on fire, but it was that audience piece. It was like having this population of live people sitting there talking to us via chat, driving the whole damn thing. And I don't know about you, but I always took so much inspiration in the moment from what people were saying in the chat room.
Yeah, well, I think that's, I'm not really too much in the field nowadays, but I think that's kind of what differentiated what was going on back then with now, to where we were able to communicate and talk live with the people while we're doing our segments, and they didn't just kind of feel like a drone in the background. We, like you said, we would do this caption this, and we would have the audience participation live, you know as opposed to, we would do Q&A questions later or something like that, how they do now or whatever that is. But yeah, being able, and then you always knew when you hit a good subject, like you said, the world's best or the world's worst, or I think we did like the world's ugliest or something like that. And you could, that's when people really get involved, because we're doing this for ourselves, but we're also wanting to entertain people, and having those people come on board and actually participate, which was, I think, the hardest thing to get to do, was to get people to actually participate. Once that was happening, I think that's when it was really taking off.
Yeah, yeah. There were, the energy level was just was amazing for a really long time. And like I said, I think the ambition, I never really caught up with what I hoped was going to happen with the thing, but it was still like this point of pride, that we were creating this thing every single week. um the I guess when it started to kind of wane a little bit for me, it was like, and again, I've talked about this previously in this format, but did you ever get that frustration of those times when, like, wow, is anybody showing up tonight? Like, there's like 10 people here, and last week, shit, we had 27 last week, and the week before that we had 50, and I don't know. I think that for me, the first cracks in the armor was when I realized that you and I and Andrea are putting so much time and effort away from our personal lives into producing something that frankly no one listened to. you know
Yeah, I mean, there would definitely be those times, and or especially when we would do certain subject matter, or segments where I'm like, oh, this is going to be a banger, like this is going to be great, and then nothing would happen, and we would have like maybe two people there, and I would just be like, I could have swore that this would have been the one to have broken our whatever it was at the time, how we refer to it, but I thought this would have broken it, like this was the best, and two people were there, and like you said, it was a lot of work with towards the end, little reward, because that first, I'd probably say like 2.5, 3 years or whatever it was, when I was a part of it, it was pretty rewarding just to have all of us there, and occasionally we get people who came in, and it was great. But I think once we started peaking, it was even better. But it was when it started slowing down, where, like you just said, it was like, okay, well, we're doing production meetings twice a week, we're trying to come up with all these new bits. I would use the word discouraging more than anything else. you know um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, no, I think I reached that point. I don't know if Andrea did. I'm not sure if you've recorded her yet. I would be surprised if she did, because I think she was just happy to be there no matter what. That's the impression I got. Um, and there was nothing wrong with that, but I think you definitely poured more into it than her or even I did. You know.
And it's interesting, and no, I haven't. I ever really talked to Andrea about this in this whole time, all these years later, this decade later. I've never really broached the subject with her at all, because I tell you, and I'll get, I'm kind of jumping ahead in line a little bit here, but I'll tell you that when she finally parted ways, she was very sweet and kind about it, and she said something that stuck with me. And basically she said, look, man, this is your dream, this is not my dream, and I've been happy to be a part of it and try to help, but this is taking too much of my life, and I've got my daughter and I've got other things I've got going on in life, and I can't put the amount of time and effort into someone else's dream. I've got to work on my stuff. And it was weird because it hurt, but I got it. I understood,
Mhm.
what could I really have said other than, Jesus, thank you for, a year and a half of being a part of this thing. But
Yeah. How much longer was she on after I had took off?
time is weird, dude. I'm the worst when it comes to trying to remember dates and years and length of time and how old people were and stuff. I want to say, because again, the only benchmark I really have is 4 years,
Yeah.
and I know that the last half of a year, it was just me and my wife,
Mhm.
right? And she stepped in to be the co-host when Andrea left, and then I think we managed to squeeze out another maybe 6 months before I finally was like, okay, that's it, we're done, we're playing to an empty room, and I don't have anything else to say. I've run out of ideas and whatever. So I guess um if you made your exit around, I guess maybe 2.5 years, to maybe three, so it must have been the third year. I don't know, dude. This is so stupid that I can't remember any of this. Um,
I want to say I was there for a good, like, yeah, solid two. At 2.5 sounds right, because I was kind of lingering in there that last like 6 months before it was finally like set in stone.
right. And and so really, here you are. You've kind of gotten to the meat of the question. Is, I knew, um, I knew that something had changed for you, right? I knew that I could kind of feel it every single week, that your attention was being driven to a lot of other things apart from just, our stupid show every single Saturday. Um, and then uh, something, but it wasn't until all these years later, and the opportunity to talk to you 10 years down the road, to really get a sense of what was happening at that time in your life. Because at that time for me, it was like, I don't know, it was like, oh, here we go, I'm coming to terms with stuff, buddy.
Yeah.
um it was like losing a brother in a way. Like, I look, we didn't know each other from Adam until 2005, right? I didn't know you, you didn't know me. We met on a message board before there was ever Facebook. There were these BBB message boards, and you and I were out there with a bunch of other people talking about movies and books and comic books and science fiction and whatever else. And but over that period of time, right, I got to know you, and we got to develop that kind of friendship. So I guess I wanted to kind of see if I can and get you to kind of talk about why you left ultimately, what happened, and how it fell apart for you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm glad that we can get to it now, because obviously a lot had happened. It's been several years since then. It's not a fresh wound, let alone a wound at all anymore in regards to why. So I had gotten married in September of like 2007 or something like that, and before I was with her for 6 years. We got married, and 6 months later we divorced. And through 2 of those years, I was on the radio show. And like the last year, the radio show was great for me because it was a distraction from what was going on at home. You know, I was working two jobs at the time, and then I was able to do this, and the home life was pretty miserable. I started drinking a lot as well, um, but ultimately, um, what ended up happening was my wife ended up cheating on me on the night
Mm.
before our best friend's funeral. I wish I could make this shit up, but it's true. Um,
Oh.
with one of my friends down the street from my apartment. Um, and then it just fell apart from there. You know, we went to the funeral the next day. I remember by then everyone knew because I'm like, dude, fuck this whore. And then that same night, she ends up going out to the bar. That just goes to show like where our relationship was. Now, I'm not going to put the full blame on her necessarily. It takes, you know, there's two people in the relationship.
Sure, sure.
I was drinking too much and she didn't want to be near me, or she was smoking too much pot and I didn't want to be near her, whatever it was. But from there, you know, we owned stuff together. We lived in this apartment together. I actually tried to work it out, stupidly. But I believed, I was like, hey, you know, let's just take a break or something. So then I went and moved to my brother's. He was in Utah at the time. He was Air Force Reserve. So that's where he was stationed at the time. So I went and I stayed with him for the 2 months. Um, and I ended up doing, I think, a show or two with you guys in those 2 month spans in Utah. Um, and it was just really hard. It was really hard to put on like a happy face because in the meantime, I'm trying to work stuff out with my first wife, and she's out partying. And I still remember to this day her telling me, "Well, you got all this out of your system. I need to get it out of mine now." And I'm just like, fuck, okay. And of course, you know, I'm in Mormon country, you know, I'm like, there's no alcohol anywhere.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
I'm like, how am I supposed to go release all this pain that I know that she's out having fun doing? So I was able to kind of come back and forth and keep you and Andrea, you know, updated a little bit. um, I didn't know where I was going. You know, like I thought my whole life was kind of planned out from there. You know, being with the girl that I loved and moving, going from there. Um, Ultimately, she decided that she wanted to get a divorce, and at that point, I'm like, okay, it took a lot, but it was time to move on. It was about three
Mm.
months I was in Utah, I think, for 3 or 4, and then I from there I moved to San Diego. And then I think I was still doing an episode or two with you, but at that point, man, I didn't care, man. I pushed everybody out. The only person I didn't push out was my mom because I ended up having to move back in with my mom when I was like 22 or whatever it was when it happened, 22, I think. Um, so yeah, my brother and my dad, friends, you know, anyone associated with her, even if they were on my side, I was like, you know, fuck you, basically. Like, I want nothing to do with you guys, nothing. Um, and that just kind of took a toll. And you know, I think you and I had a conversation, and you were just, I don't remember the exact words, but I think it was something along the lines of you or I saying, okay, well, if you're not fully committed, then, you know, even these random guest spots aren't enough. And I think I was just essentially like, you know, I can't be a part of it anymore because I wasn't the person I was on that radio show anymore after everything that had happened.
Hmm.
um, I just didn't care anymore. So it would be hard for me to come back and do that, and I need a long time to heal from that.
And I mean, it's like I've never heard or understood the scope of what you just laid out, right? I knew that, and frankly, I didn't. I think if I look back, I don't think I even knew that you had already been married for as long as you were, right? I remember you talking about this individual from time to time. I remember little pieces of hearing about her, but not to the extent that you just laid out. So obviously it was so much on you that like you kept us. I feel like you almost like kept us safe from everything that was going on with you, right? That you were dealing with all this crap. I do remember when you went to your brother's. Now that you say that, I remember you saying, yeah, I'm out in Utah, I'm visiting with my brother. I do distinctly remember that. But I'll tell you, I mean, on my side of it, I just there's almost like a level of guilt that I hold because and look, it was your choice not to, who you share your personal stuff with is everybody's personal choice, right? And again, you had your own reasons for not spilling all of your stuff all over everybody else, and I get that, but I feel guilty because it's like I had no clue what you were going through. I had no idea the level of pain and hurt that you were dealing with at that time. And just like every other normal human being, selfishly, I felt it is funny to look back years later and go, I sat there and felt genuinely insulted, and how dare he, and what the F, and we had a good thing, how dare you, but that's just kind of childish to me to look back on it and realize, wow, I was hung up on some dumb shit when this guy was dealing with real life and real stuff. And here I am worried about this, cranky anchors wannabe radio show,
That's a good show. No, but well, here's the thing too. Like you said, I led on to letting really only a few people know that there was stuff going on, and even then, not to full extent. I mean, a lot of people didn't even know my story up until about a year or two ago. People I had worked with for 5 or 6 years, and I was just like, yeah, so and so, because at the time you hear, okay, she cheated on you. Okay, well, what were you doing wrong? And it's like, okay, well, I was drinking heavily at the time, and she was out partying all the time, and we were trying to blanket this relationship with happiness when honestly we just needed to go our own way. So it was a contention of embarrassment for me. um, Now years later, it's just like, yeah, it happened, and you know what, I grew from it. And you know what, she's off. She lives in Idaho now. She has 2 kids. uh, she's doing fine. I'm here. I have my own wife, my second wife, and I have my 2 kids. So it's just like, at the time it was such unbearable pain. But yeah, I felt like talking with you about it was just like, yeah, we're going to divorce, it's whatever. It was easier for me to try and play it off like nothing, and then just let myself deal with it inside. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that you can't do that shit because it eats you up, So I've been really able to talk about it more because it's a sense of healing. And you know, I think that's why I held it in. I'm not even sure if Andrea knows the exact story either, but that was it, man. It was her. It had nothing to do with the radio show. And
Right.
um, as much as that would have been a great distraction, I was just like, okay, well, fuck it. She's gone. All right, well, I'm gonna go, fuck all these other girls and do drugs and drink, because who fucking cares now? I have no responsibility. Um, I went down a downward spiral there for a little bit, but luckily I was able to come back, and I just didn't want to bring any of my close friends or anyone like that with me.
It's just damn. Damn, man. um I am sorry that you went through all that, and I genuinely mean that. I mean, everybody has to go through life. Everybody has to deal with what they have to deal with in order to grow and become the person that they are, for good or ill. But no, I mean, seriously, I think if I have a regret, it would be that I regret that you weren't able to let me in, and let me try to be something more to you than just this friend of yours that you do this radio thing with, and again, history has its own way. You can look back with a clearer set of eyes now, all these years later. Um, and it's interesting because we've stayed friends on Facebook for a long time now. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if we ever even really disconnected um on Facebook that way, because we were there at the dawn of the damn thing. We were doing
Yeah.
radio when Facebook launched.
We were still doing MySpace, man. I mean, yeah.
Oh God, MySpace.
Yeah.
Yep,
Back
had
then,
a
if we heard
MySpace
something
page.
Twitter, we thought it was a fucking bird, not what it
There
is
was no
now.
other.
So,
Hey, I'll tell you what though, MySpace is where I got all of those bands to come on for
yep.
interviews. That's where I found the musicians that we interviewed. Um, so you know what, and you sound like you had a lot of years to kind of work through what you went through, and I'm curious now. I want to kind of and move forward because you moved on, right? I mean, and like you said, you were coming and going a little bit. I understand better now. My recollection of you just sort of being there but not being there, and then all of a sudden being like, all right, you know what? Then I'm just going to go. And now that I can look at that with the knowledge of what you just shared and that perspective, and like I said, it wasn't just you. Like, the whole thing was on this slow burn down to zero anyways, right? Andrea hung on for a while longer, and then my wife came in for a while longer, and then it was like, okay, fine, this ride's over. It's time to move on. But I'm curious then to ask you, like, what was the turning point for you? Because I can tell you, and like on this podcast, I'm going to cover it later this month, my rock bottom, right? And I have a rock bottom where I was just about similar age to where you were when all this happened to you. But I'm curious. I don't want to know the rock bottom. That's your story. But I want to know, where was that turning point for you? What was the revelation that started bringing you back
Back from,
from the bottom, buddy?
yeah. Uh, yeah, I won't get into it too much. I mean, I kind of, I've been battling alcohol off and on for a few years. That was kind of my go-to. It was an easy one. Um, a lot of mistakes were made by it, and I should actually be pretty thankful that I am where I'm at right now. Um, but it wasn't until I it full. I mean, I've taken breaks here and there from it. A couple months here and there, I would stop and then be like, "Hey, I'm okay again." Um, it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I was just really, really unhappy with my job. Loved what I did, loved it, but was very unhappy with the management, and that just made me and gave me an excuse to keep on drinking even harder and making stupid decisions. And um, it was this year. It's weird because 2020 has been a pretty crazy year for everybody. But it was at the beginning of the year where I finally decided. I was like, this was in February, early February. I was like, all right, it's time to change. And the job, I'm not working at that job anymore. Got the house, living with the family, focusing on them. Not that I didn't before, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. And just truly focusing myself, dealing with issues that were so easily ignored when I drank. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, and that's something I'll be battling with, for the rest of my life. And I have no problem saying that and being like, all right, I'm going to be battling with it. I've never made my life easy. Why would I make the rest of it easy? Um, and that's kind of it. There, it was at the beginning of this year where
Hmm.
it was just finally like, all right, well, you've been talking like this for like the last 2 years to make a change. You had this as an excuse. The excuse isn't there anymore. What is it now? You know, and it was just like, nothing. Let's just do it. Let's change. Let's be the man that you're always wanting to be, or trying to be anyway, and move forward.
And and I find that interesting because and I started to preface it by saying that you and I have been connected on Facebook as sort of that distant friends list acknowledgement every year. Hey, how are you? Hey, happy birthday. or you'd post something and I'd, hit the like button.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But for me, from my perspective, looking in on your life from so far away via the lens of Facebook, um, I really felt like, holy shit, look at Mark. He's a family guy now. Look, right? He's got his beautiful new wife. He's got this awesome little kid with a kick-ass name, Salem. And I'm just like, I felt at that point I was seeing like a new Mark.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, this kid's good now. Look at him. Right. And so despite whatever you have been dealing with over these last couple of years up to now, up to 2020, I guess I'll share with you, if it's worth anything, that, man, from the outside looking in, you have looked like a solid individual, like a solid dad and husband and respectable guy for quite a while in my eyes, dude. I mean, I was an arrogant, jackass in the days that you and I were doing radio together, and you were a punk.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
Pretty much, you were just a punk kid, 20 something years old, whatever, and I was a putz, with my own thumb up my ass. So I look at you and I go, it can't be just this year that he's turned a corner, because I've watched this kid turn into a man and a father and a husband for a while now. So take that for what it's worth.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, excuse me, I burped. Yeah. Well, this year for that personally, but I think we moved to Arizona about 7 years ago, and that's kind of when it really started changing. Because I met my wife in San Diego, and we would go out and kick it, and dude, your typical San Diego beach California movie. We would go to the beaches at night and drink, and people are playing fucking acoustic guitars and shit. Like, I'm not making it up, man. It's like what you see in that shit sometimes is 100% true. um, and I mean, in San Diego, where we were located, near like Pacific Beach, Ocean Beach, like, it's party central, man. And then all of a sudden, we moved to Arizona, and I think that's when my big boy hat snapped on. And I was like, oh shit, okay, now it's time to be doing something, and get the car, get the job, do all that. Um, and then, of course, I would pepper in some bad weekends of me drinking, and then I would just
Yeah.
not want to move for a day or two. I mean, I'm very thankful to say I was never one of those drunks who hit anyone. I never got in my car and drove into anything. I never abused my family,
Right.
blood or not. It was more tearing myself apart because I felt I deserved it. And I think that kind of just goes on back to maybe around the time that we were doing the radio show. Um, why? That's my own business, but
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Sure.
but yeah, it was all interesting times. It's weird to think that it was like 10 years ago, even
Right.
more. That it's really trippy to think.
There's times when I feel like, are you kidding me? That was just like a couple years ago. And then there's other times when, what was that, like 20 years ago, 30? Like, that was a lifetime ago. I don't even, like, I can't even fathom that we ever were there. Like,
Yeah, and now, dude, now that I'm 35, like, I completely am like understanding, you know, things that I didn't quite understand. Obviously, 10 years ago, you grow. But I mean, perfect examples. Like, I remember on one of the segments in the show, you randomly brought up using like wet wipes for your butt. And I'm just like, dude, I use dry. It was like a big funny segment. I'm just like, dude, you're ridiculous. Why would you do that? I can tell you right now. Now that I'm 35, man, the wet towelette wipe is the way to go. Oh
because
my
guess
god,
what?
man. It's the
I was
way.
I was 35,
Yeah,
just like you are now. I was 35 when we had that conversation.
yeah.
The funny thing about that show, I think, in the final analysis for me, when I really look back, is how juvenile we were. We were a bunch of adults that were just taking every opportunity to say every bad potty word that we knew how to say, making all kinds of adult sexual jokes about everything. Um, yeah, there's a YouTube channel for it out there. I've never said the name of that radio show on this podcast. Everything's anonymous. Like I don't use my own name. Nobody knows my name, and all of these things. But it's out there, and the only real videos that are there are the world's ugliest celebrity.
That's it.
Um, yeah, well, we did that with was like Amy Winehouse and Kelly Osbourne and Michael Jackson ended up winning. And
Yeah,
I
half
very
those people are
recently,
probably dead now too.
I
Yeah,
think Kelly Osbourne is probably the only one still alive.
Jesus.
Um, but I watched that this year as a look back. And my God, every third word out of my mouth was F. Literally. Like, are you kidding me? I've never sworn or used foul language so much. And yet here we are. God, there was just so much uh adolescent
Dude, that was like our
stupidity that we did.
prime of the curse wording, because I've
Yeah,
even calmed down. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. It was, I need to, make my point understood, and the only way I'm gonna say that is if I throw three fuck words into that sentence of nine. You
right.
know?
And even just I have some regrets. I mean, there was one time we were trying to get Andrea to use boob tape and take a picture. Like, what was I thinking?
But
I look back at that now and go, what is wrong with you? Why
yeah,
would I
well,
ever put somebody in that position like that? I that's like a regret that I have, ever remember the whole bingo wing thing. We had a whole big
dude, the
set
bingo wing was great.
where
I have
you
no
were going to,
shame with the bingo
oh,
wing, man. I thought that was great.
Jesus,
I thought that was
you were,
hilarious.
you were going to film a porno with a new position that you had. Oh
Yeah.
my, and we were going to sell
I
it for
don't
$1
think
million.
we necessarily talk about that segment, but the bingo wing was brought up probably until about 3 years ago. I haven't said it in a while, but now, like, if you type in bingo wing, people know what it is. So it's like it kind of lost its steam. I mean, I guess if I really wanted to, I could, go to Pornhub and type in bingo wing and see what happens, but I'm not going to do that.
Oh,
God knows
don't,
what's
no,
going to
just,
happen.
you're not going to be happy.
I no, I don't want. Yeah, I like being happy. I'll stay away from that.
Stay happy. Stay
But
happy.
to be fair, I think what you were trying to do was see what worked and see what didn't. You know, and the only way of doing that is actually doing it. And like I said earlier, we would do a segment where I thought it would be a winner and it doesn't. And then there'd be other segments where we thought, oh God, why are we even doing this? Okay, it's just a filler. Then that 10-minute little filler turned into a 30-minute segment, which
Right.
turned into 2 weeks later, we're going to do that again. I mean, how are we supposed to know? How are you supposed to know?
And I think a lot of the struggle I had during those times was like I struggled with being a control freak, and that was the one regret that all those years it took me a long time to get over this idea that I felt like in a lot of ways and again you might tell me I'm wrong, and Andrea might tell me I'm wrong, but I felt like I pushed people away because I was such a freaking no, we have to do this, it has to be this way. And yeah, I felt, looking back, I felt for a long time that I was just this overbearing asshole that was just telling everybody what to do and expecting everyone to operate quote unquote at my level, whatever the hell that was.
Mhm.
um and I think that was ultimately part of the downfall, was just I gassed myself out on it.
Yeah, you might have just burnt yourself out on doing it all because yeah, you were very hands-on. Yeah, you wanted things to be perfect. I didn't mind because to be all honest, that was a little bit less work I had to do. Um, I know what you're talking about with the pushiness and that kind of stuff, but when you're trying to put together a radio show with two other people and you're trying to figure out stuff, you kind of have to be. Someone needs to kind of take charge, and I mean, it was your name of the radio show. So it's like you kind of had to be that person. So that's the way I saw it as. I didn't really see it as who the F, who the hell is this guy? Like, I'm like, all right, this is this guy's show. We're co-hosting with him, but this is like his thing. If he's not happy about something, so he'll let us know. Um, I didn't personally see it like that. Um, I think now that we've been talking, one of the last times I did the show was in San Diego. I was with an ex girlfriend at the time in her place, and I said I would get on because I think I was leaving for basic in like a week or two. And you were still doing it with Andrea, and you were under the impression I was going to do the entire show. And I said no, I was only going to, and I was under the impression that I was only going to be on for like an hour.
I think I
Uh,
remember this.
yeah, so I did my thing, and then I got off and I said bye, and then I remember you texting me or sending me something in a chat, and you were just like, where are you going? And I was just like, dude, I told you, like, I'm only doing this one segment, I'm done, I'm going out. And you're like, no, you said you were going to do this. And I was just like, no, I'm not. And bam, it was like that was the end of the conversation. And
Yeah.
I think that was the last time we had talked for a while.
See, and maybe it's one of these suppressed memories,
Yeah, I
because
didn't even think about it until we
you
were talking about it too. I was like, oh,
yeah,
I think that was the last time you and I had last time I was on the radio show that we briefly talked.
yeah, yeah. Oh, and there we go. I mean, that perfectly spells out why I look back and think that, Jesus, what an asshole I was, right? But again, that lens of time and living a life and living in the real world, and I just I think it feels good to kind of just finally be able to get all of that out and just be able to kind of put a pin in it and understand what it was. And really, again, it's been so cool to listen to you recount the good times,
Mhm.
because I've got my own, in my own head, my own thoughts and memories of what the good times were, but listening to you recount them is like, yeah, you know what, that shit was good.
Yeah.
It really was actually good.
Well, if my first wife taught me anything, it was look back at the good times, man, not the bad that went, really south. But yeah, I hear what you're talking about. I could see how you could perceive it from your point of view and how you might think you were being too much. I never did feel that, and if I did, I know I would have said something to you. You and I had that very open relationship. Um, that's just what it was. Uh, if you weren't a part of the show and kind of looking in, they might see it like that, but they weren't working one on one or one on two or whatever, like we were, like Angie and I were doing with you know? So I guess it just all depends on who sees it the way that they might. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but this has been, exceptionally helpful to me. It really has. I mean, honestly, bro, I can say in all honest and sincerity, I have missed you, dude. I have missed talking to you. I have missed having, your voice, so to speak, in my ear, because here we are. Now I'm 45, you're 35. It's 10 years on, and I've never met you in person.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever have a chance to meet in person. You know what I mean? It's just, forget for Corona world for a moment. It's just that nature of life and having to do things like go to a job and raise your family. But yeah, I feel like, maybe someday there's that chance that you and I will find a way to sit down and have a cherry Coke Zero, because
There we
neither of
go.
us drinks. We're not sitting down to have a beer.
Yeah, definitely, man. That sounds good. And you know, I'm here to help. I mean, that'll be like $200 now that I'm going to bill you. But yeah, anything that'll make
Oh,
you feel better. Absolutely.
geez, I'm gonna need another stimulus check. I don't think I have the funds
Yeah.
for that bill. But well, and again, I feel it's like it's like a little bit of a weight off my shoulders now. Okay, good. I finally heard you. I finally connected with you the right way, and I'm just like super glad that you're doing well and that you and your family are doing well.
Thank you.
What's on the horizon here, right? So you've got, how old is Salem now? He's a
Salem
six,
turned
seven.
6 in October, and I have
Okay.
a 1-year-old daughter who turned 1 in October as well.
Ooh, October what?
October 26th.
So close to a good birthday. Oh my God.
Dude, I know.
October 30th is the birthday. You should have told your wife to hold on, man. Give it a couple days,
Yeah.
and then she could
Well, she
share with
was supposed
Andrea
to
and
come out the 27th, but she came one day early, and then
okay.
Salem's October 3rd. So yeah, we were just like horn dogs at the end of December, early January. We were just pumping each other out, apparently.
You gotta build your family. You gotta, there's the biological imperative to
I'm like,
procreate.
no,
Anyways.
honey, I'll bring in the new year to you. Just go from there.
What's on the horizon for you? I know you and I talked the last couple days, just kind of connecting a little bit before we did the podcast, but what's your next step? What are you looking at doing? I know you're kind of taking a break right now from everything professionally, but where do you want to be by this time next year, or when we finally get things like vaccines and shit by hopefully summer? What do you think is next for you?
Um, it's honestly going to be focusing on making myself happy. Um,
Mm,
it's I mean, I'm still going to focus on family and stuff, but I need to make sure that I'm doing something that I genuinely care about, because I can't hit a wall like this again.
mm-hmm.
And it's as selfish as it sounds. I am just going to be focusing on myself and make sure that I'm happy, because if I'm not happy, then my family's not happy. You know. Um, so I need to kind of take care of myself, which is what I've been doing. I'm definitely at a good place now. So a year from now, I just want to be able to come home and be proud of what I'm doing, and I really hope it's something that I'll be helping people out with. Is something I kind of want to do. So you know, we'll kind of see. Don't check back with me in a year or anything like that. That'll be embarrassing if I'm like, oh yeah, I'm living under a bridge now. This laptop, it's not even mine. And just go from there.
You're running like an Etsy store where you're selling like crocheted Captain America shields or something,
Yes,
and
dude, Etsy's like huge right now. I mean, just with COVID and
oh, there's all
everything. I mean,
kinds of
that's
money.
everyone's. Oh God, yeah,
Sure,
it's all over the place. Yeah, I mean, hell, my
look at
my wife
all.
started an Etsy store. She makes her own jewelry, so she has a bunch of earrings. If you're interested, um,
Oh
yeah, I know. I think you still got like an ear pierce, don't you?
no, oh no, are you
No.
kidding? No,
Okay.
Jesus
All right.
Christ,
All right.
no. Did I ever have? I guess I must have had an ear
I
pierce at
could have
some point.
swore
I don't.
you had one of those, like, I don't want to say a ring, but maybe it was like a little diamond earring or something. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think, babe. Did I ever have my ears pierced? Not since you know me. Okay, so no,
Okay,
that's
well,
27 years. No,
no offense to your wife, but she's a liar.
no. I'm a tattoo guy, not an ear pierce guy. That's what I
Gotcha.
am.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we've probably dragged that out far enough.
Hey, man.
Far enough. Good enough. Good enough. Thank you, man. I mean, this has
Of
been
course.
it's been a good hour. It's been really nice, and I look forward to kind of doing what I always been doing the last couple of years, which is just kind of watching on you and keep posting pictures of the kids, man. Keep in touch and tell me and show the world what you're doing, because I can say 10 years later, dude, I am proud of you. I'm proud to know you. I'm glad that you and I got to share that part of our life together as friends and make something really awesome. So, nothing but the best to you and the family, dude. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
Of course, and likewise, and it was a really good point in my life being able to do that, creatively, and I haven't had that opportunity and chance since, and I don't know if I ever would again, because that's such a nice diamond to go back to in my head. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, brother. All right, we'll stop there. We'll wrap it up for today. Any of you that took the time to listen to this, thank you so much. I appreciate the time you spent with me and Mark. And that'll do it. I'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about some more stuff. For now, wherever you are, have a good one. And you too, buddy. Have a good one.
You too, man.
All right. See ya.